never thought the man I shared my life with for 25 years would humiliate me on my own birthday. The dining room looked perfect that night. Candles flickering softly, roses in a vase, and the smell of roasted chicken filling the air. Our children had called earlier with warm wishes, but tonight it was just Mark and me. I wanted that. I needed a night where we could feel like us again, but something felt wrong. Mark sat across from me, his phone glowing under the table. He barely looked up, just muttered, "Happy birthday, Ev," and handed me a gift bag. I smiled, pretending not to notice how cold his tone sounded. "Can I open it now?" He nodded, still typing. Inside was a gym membership card and a small box of anti-aging cream. For a second, I thought it was a joke. Then I saw his serious face. "A gym pass?" I asked quietly. He didn't even glance up. "You've been saying you want to feel healthier." I thought this might help. I laughed weakly, though my stomach turned. "Right, healthier." He gave a half shrug and went back to his phone. It wasn't the gift that hurt. It was the message behind it. The distance. The way he couldn't even meet my eyes. I'd spent weeks preparing this dinner, hoping we could reconnect. But he looked more like a man waiting for something. Or someone else. "Is there someone more important texting you right now?" I asked gently. He sighed, finally looking up. "It's work, Evelyn. Don't start drama tonight, please." Drama. That's what he called it now. My feelings. I forced a smile and raised my glass. "To 25 years," I said softly. He clinked glasses without emotion, took a sip and went right back to his screen. For the rest of dinner, I stayed quiet, studying him the way you study a stranger sitting too close. His phone kept buzzing and he tried to hide it, turning the screen away. When I stood to clear the dishes, I heard it, his low voice from the hallway. "Just out of sight. She's 28, full of life, not like—" He stopped mid-sentence when he noticed me standing there. His eyes widened slightly, then hardened. "Dinner was great," he said too quickly. "I'm heading for a shower." I nodded, every muscle in my body tightening. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and started washing the dishes. The water was hot enough to burn, but I didn't move my hands. When I heard the shower running upstairs, my heart pounded so loud it filled the kitchen. My mind raced. 28? Who? I climbed the stairs, slow and quiet, like a ghost in my own home. His phone was on the nightstand, screen still glowing. My fingers shook as I picked it up. There it was. Clara, a name I'd never seen before. Their messages were still open. "You looked amazing today. I can't wait until you're free. I can't wait to finally be free," he had written back. My knees almost gave out. I sat on the edge of the bed, reading every word. Compliments, plans, lies wrapped in tenderness. She worked at his office. A younger woman. 28, full of life. I scrolled further. Photos, emojis, late-night messages. He had even written, "Evelyn doesn't get me anymore." A small sound escaped my throat. Half laugh, half sob. I covered my mouth before it could escape again. I'd spent decades standing by this man, raising kids, working 2 jobs when money was tight, cheering for his every promotion. And now, I was a joke, he told another woman. I heard the shower turn off. My heart stopped. I put the phone back exactly how it was and walked into the hallway, pretending to straighten a picture frame. He stepped out in a towel, surprised to see me. "You're still up?" I forced a calm smile. "Just cleaning up." "Dinner was nice." He nodded, suspicious but silent. "Good night, Ev." When he turned away, I whispered softly, "Good night, Mark." But inside, something had shifted. The part of me that begged for love went silent, replaced by something sharper, colder. Later that night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His breathing was slow, steady, peaceful, as if he hadn't just shattered the life we built. My mind replayed his words. "She's 28, full of life, not like who, Mark? Not like the woman who gave you her youth, her patience, her trust?" I turned onto my side, watching the man I no longer recognized. For years I thought silence was strength. Tonight, I realized silence had made me invisible. I reached for my phone and opened his contact photo. The smiling man I once adored. Then I looked at my reflection in the dark screen. Older. Yes, but wiser too, and as tears welled up, a calm voice inside me whispered, "You're not the one who should be ashamed." I knew what I had to do now, because if he was planning to be free, he was about to learn what freedom really costs. The next day, I met her, without her knowing who I was. I didn't plan it. Not really. But after the sleepless night I had, after reading those messages over and over again, something inside me pushed me to see her with my own eyes. I needed to understand what kind of woman made my husband risk 25 years of marriage. The cafe near Mark's. Office was one he mentioned often. The place with the best lattes in town. I'd never been there before. It was modern, polished, filled with young professionals laughing over their phones and laptops. I chose a corner table and ordered a coffee I barely touched. My heart pounded as I scanned the room. Then I saw her, Clara. She walked in with 2 co-workers, her laughter cutting through the soft jazz music. She wore a red dress, the same shade as one I used to wear when Mark and I were newly married. She was beautiful, yes, but not in a way that hurt. She was just young, careless, effortlessly confident, the kind of confidence that comes before life teaches humility. I couldn't look away. The waiter greeted her with a bright smile, pulling out a chair as if she were royalty. When he passed my table, he barely glanced at me. I felt invisible, just another middle-aged woman sitting alone. Clara's table was close enough for me to hear bits of her conversation. Her voice was loud, animated. "So he's really leaving his wife?" one of her friends asked. Clara smiled, playing with her straw. "He says he's ready to start fresh. He just needs time to wrap things up. You know how men are." The girls giggled. My stomach twisted. She knew. She knew he was married, and she didn't care. Another coworker leaned in. "Aren't you worried he'll go back to her?" Clara laughed softly, flipping her hair. "Please, he's been miserable for years. He says she doesn't even try anymore. I'm exactly what he needs." Her words sliced through me. I felt heat rise to my face. Shame, anger, disbelief, all mixing into something dangerous. I took a deep breath and forced my expression to stay calm. I studied her the way a detective studies a suspect. Every gesture, every smirk, every lie she told with a straight face. She was enjoying this. The attention, the gossip, the power. I didn't want to cause a scene. Not yet. But I also couldn't walk away quietly. When the waiter came by to refill my cup, I stopped him. "Can I pay for that table's bill?" I asked, nodding toward Clara's group. He blinked. "All of it, ma'am?" "Yes. And please give them this." I tore a corner from my receipt and wrote the words carefully. "Enjoy it while it lasts." He hesitated, probably wondering if I was another admirer trying to impress her. "Of course, ma'am," he said finally, and walked away. I watched from behind my cup as he approached their table. "Excuse me," the waiter said, handing the slip of paper to Clara. "A lady paid for your meal. She wanted you to have this." Clara looked delighted. "Really? Maybe my admirer is around." She unfolded the note, reading it quickly. Her smile faltered, just slightly, but enough for me to see it. "Who was it?" one of her friends asked. Clara glanced around the cafe, her eyes passing over me without stopping. "Probably someone from work," she said with a forced laugh. "People love to spoil me." She slipped the note into her purse, pretending it didn't matter. But her voice had changed, just a little tighter, a little uneasy. I stood slowly, paid for my untouched coffee, and walked toward the door. My reflection in the glass caught my eye. Simple clothes, tired eyes, but a quiet strength forming beneath the surface. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady. Outside, the winter wind brushed against my face. I breathed deeply, the air sharp and cold. Behind me, I could almost feel her eyes searching the cafe, wondering who I was. I didn't turn back. That evening, when I returned home, Mark was already there. He stood in the kitchen, his phone in hand, jaw clenched. The moment he saw me, his face turned red. "What did you do, Evelyn?" he shouted. I froze, keeping my voice calm. "What are you talking about?" He took a step closer, eyes burning. "Don't play dumb with me." "Clara called me. She said someone left her a note." "A threat. Was it you?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "A threat?" "No, just a reminder." His nostrils flared. "You're losing it, Evelyn." I smiled faintly. "Maybe, or maybe I'm finally waking up." His phone buzzed again, lighting up with her name, Clara. He turned away to answer, muttering under his breath. I watched him go, my hands trembling, but not from fear. This time it was something different, power. He still thought I was the same woman he could lie to, dismiss and control. He had no idea that the quiet, broken wife he once knew was gone, and as his voice drifted through the hallway, low and frantic, I whispered to myself, "Enjoy it while it lasts, Clara." He thought he could gaslight me, but he forgot I've known him longer than she's been alive. The morning light sliced through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across the kitchen table. Dust floated in the still air, catching in the beam like suspended time. The coffee between us had gone cold, untouched, bitter, and perfect for the silence that hung there. Mark sat across from me, sleeves rolled up, pretending to scroll through his phone as if nothing had changed. But everything had. His tie was loose, his eyes tired, Guilt always has a way of draining color from the face. I studied him quietly. The man who once brought me roses now brought home excuses. "So," I said evenly, "you've been working late again." He didn't look up. "Yeah, big project. You know how it is." I smiled faintly. "Of course. The kind that smells like Chanel No. 5 and wears my old red dress?" His head snapped up. "What's that supposed to mean?" There it was. The defensive tone, sharp and predictable. The same voice he used when he lied about a conference 3 years ago that never existed. "You tell me," I said, leaning back. "You're the one who's been so busy." He sighed, ran a hand through his hair, and gave me that pitying look men use when they think they're smarter. "Evelyn, you've been distant. You don't smile like you used to. You don't try anymore." I almost laughed. "And your solution was what? Finding someone who does?" He looked wounded, not because I was wrong, but because I'd said it out loud. "I deserve happiness," he murmured. "You deserve honesty," I replied softly. "But you've never cared for that." He stood abruptly, pacing near the counter. "You're twisting this. You always do this. You make me the villain for wanting something real." "Something real," I echoed. "Is that what you call it when you steal from our joint account?" That stopped him cold. His eyes flicked toward me. A flicker too quick, but enough. I kept my tone light. "I checked the statements, Mark. A transfer every Friday. Neat. Consistent. Like clockwork." He recovered quickly. "It's for investments. You wouldn't understand." "Investments," I repeated, nodding slowly. "And does your investment know she's funded by our retirement?" He slammed his palm on the counter. "This paranoia of yours is exhausting." I let the silence stretch. In that silence, he broke more than I ever could. When he sat back down, he tried a different tactic. The soft voice. The wounded husband. "Evie, I'm trying, really. But this house, it's too big. It's time we downsized. Fresh start." I stirred my coffee, pretending to think. "You're right," I said finally. "A fresh start sounds perfect. I'll help with the sale." His surprise was almost comical. He nodded, relieved, the storm seemingly over. "Good. I'll call the realtor this week." What he didn't see, couldn't see, was the shift inside me. The woman he'd been gaslighting for months had stopped being his victim the moment she stopped believing the lie. That afternoon, while he was at work, I opened the filing cabinet in his office, the one he thought I never touched. Every folder was labeled in his neat handwriting: mortgage, insurance, taxes, and then, tucked behind them, a new one: property documents. Inside were printouts, signatures, and receipts. His name, and another: Clara Whitmore. I copied everything, every line and signature, and slid the papers back exactly as I found them. My hands were steady, too steady for what I'd just discovered. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, the lawyer who handled my late father's estate. "Evelyn," she said, surprised. "It's been a long time. I need help," I said quietly. Discreet help. By evening, I'd packed away my shock and replaced it with strategy. I cooked dinner, smiled, and listened as Mark rambled about his stressful week. I nodded when appropriate, even laughed once. Pretending had become second nature. When he went to bed, I sat in the living room, the documents spread before me under the soft lamplight. My marriage wasn't breaking. It had already broken. I was just gathering the proof. The next morning, my phone buzzed. The lawyer's voice was calm but sharp. "Evelyn," she said, "you'll want to come in. I found something you need to see." My heart tightened. "What is it?" She hesitated. "Let's just say the house you're living in isn't entirely yours, and the other name on the deed, well, it isn't yours either." I closed my eyes, the edges of the world going cold. Mark thought he could outsmart me, but he'd just handed me the first weapon I needed, and I wasn't done yet. 25 years of marriage, and he thought I wouldn't notice he put the house in her name. The lawyer's office smelled like disinfectant and fear. Everything was sterile. White walls, chrome fixtures, the soft hum of air conditioning that did nothing to ease the chill running down my spine. Papers lay in front of me, perfectly stacked, perfectly damning. Across the desk, Julia, my father's old lawyer, adjusted her glasses. Her tone was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of what she was about to say. "Evelyn, this signature," she said carefully, tapping the page. "It's supposed to be yours." I stared at it. My name, elegant and looping, but just slightly wrong. The curl of the E was tighter, the slant of the Y too sharp. My hand twitched. "He forged it," I said. "He actually forged my signature," Julia nodded grimly. "He transferred ownership of the house 3 weeks ago. Half under his name, half under Clara Whitmore." My throat tightened. The name looked grotesque printed beside his. Clara Whitmore, in in the same ink as Mark Thompson. The paper might as well have been their wedding certificate. I forced myself to stay composed. Anger was dangerous when it showed. How long before it becomes official? It's already registered, she said softly. But it can be contested, especially with proof of forgery and marital assets misuse. I swallowed hard. Proof. That I had. What else did you find? I asked. Julia hesitated. Never a good sign. He's been withdrawing large sums over the past 6 months. Not just the transfers you mentioned. Some went toward a car, a 2024 Mercedes registered under Clara's name. And another, to fund her business venture. A boutique, apparently. I let out a breath that sounded like a laugh, but wasn't. Of course, every mistress needs a startup. Julia frowned. Evelyn, you have grounds to... I lifted a hand. Not yet. He's expecting a storm. I want sunshine first. Her eyebrows knit. Do you want to confront him now? I met her gaze, voice steady. Not yet. I want him to feel safe first. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then we'll move quietly. And we did. That evening, while Mark texted late at work, I sat at my desk, freezing the joint accounts one by one. I signed the forms without hesitation, the way you sign away the last piece of something already dead. Every click, every confirmation felt like reclaiming oxygen. By midnight, I had changed the locks on our lake house, the secondary property he thought I'd forgotten. It was under my maiden name, bought before the marriage. He couldn't touch it. I walked through its empty halls, listening to my heels echo against the wooden floor. It had always been our escape, our quiet place. Now it would be mine alone. I sat by the window and watched the dark lake ripple under the moonlight. 25 years, reduced to falsified signatures and secret transfers. But there was no sadness left. Not really. Only precision. I spent the next few days gathering evidence. Copies of the financial statements, screenshots of transactions, even the photo of Clara's new car, posted online with a caption that read, "When hard work pays off. Hard work." Indeed, I met Julia again 2 days later. She looked at me with something close to admiration. "You're calmer than most clients in your position." "I'm not calm," I said. "I'm calculating," she smiled faintly. "That's even better." Mark didn't suspect a thing. He came home one evening with flowers, the same brand of cheap red roses he used to buy when he was guilty. I thanked him sweetly and made dinner, pretending not to notice how his phone lit up every few minutes. He told me about a conference in Toronto, the same city where Clara supposedly ran her boutique. I nodded and offered to pack his suit. When he kissed my cheek that night, I almost pitied him. Almost. The next morning, I opened my laptop and checked the account balances. Frozen. Safe. The lake house. Secured. The lawyer building the case. Every piece was moving exactly as I wanted. For the first time in months, I felt control return like blood to a numb limb. But control is a fragile thing. Because later that evening, while I was preparing tea, my phone buzzed with a notification from social media. I opened it without thinking, and the world stopped. It was a post from Clara Whitmore. Her smile was dazzling, her lips painted crimson. She stood in front of a mirror, wearing a silky red dress and my necklace, the one Mark had given me on our 10th anniversary. A gold locket with an engraving inside. "Forever, Evie." Her caption read, "Finally, real love." The room tilted. The porcelain cup slipped from my fingers, shattering against the tile. My reflection in the dark window looked nothing like the woman who once adored Mark Thompson. That woman was gone. The one who remained was quieter, sharper, and ready. He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought he could erase me, but I was already rewriting the story. I invited them both. He thought it was an olive branch, but it was a setup. The table gleamed beneath soft candlelight, each flame flickering against polished silverware. I'd spent the entire day preparing the dinner, not for love, not for peace, but for closure. Mark believed the invitation was my attempt to heal the family. His text that morning said, "I'm glad you're finally letting things go." Letting go, yes, but not in the way he imagined. When the doorbell rang, I took a steadying breath. My reflection in the glass cabinet looked poised. A calm, elegant woman in a navy dress, pearls at her neck, dignified, controlled, dangerous. I opened the door to find Mark and Clara standing there like they owned the night. He wore his favorite gray suit, the one I bought him years ago. She was draped in scarlet silk, the same red as my old dress, the one she'd copied. "Evelyn," Mark said, smiling stiffly. "You look good." Clara's smirk was sharper. "Oh, how lovely. A reconciliation dinner. Something like that," I said softly. "Come in." They followed me inside, their voices too loud for the quiet of the house. The air hummed with perfume, deceit, and the faint scent of the roast I'd spent hours perfecting, not for their comfort, but for their shock. At the table, Mark poured himself wine before I could offer. Clara perched beside him, crossing her legs like she belonged there. "So?" Mark began, glancing around. "Is it just us tonight?" I smiled, folding my napkin neatly. "A few more will join us later." I wanted it to feel complete. He didn't question it. He never did. That was always his mistake, assuming he was still the one in control. As the meal began, Clara couldn't resist herself. She leaned forward, swirling her wine, her eyes glinting. "You know, Evelyn," she said sweetly, "it takes strength to move on after a breakup. Most older women just cling to the past." I met her gaze and smiled gently. "You're right. Strength is everything." She tilted her head, smirking. "Glad you agree." I leaned back in my chair, taking a slow sip of wine. I had to learn that the hard way, especially when people I trusted tried to take everything from me. Mark stiffened. "Evelyn, let's not start—" "Oh, I'm just speaking generally," I interrupted softly. "About trust and signatures," Clara frowned. "Signatures?" I let the silence linger just long enough for discomfort to crawl across the table. Then the doorbell rang again. Mark looked surprised. "Who else did you invite?" "Old friends," I said, rising gracefully. When I opened the door, Julia, my lawyer, stood beside another man in a tailored suit, Mr. Harrison, Mark's boss. Both carried an air of quiet authority. "Please," I said warmly, "come in. We were just discussing honesty." Mark's complexion drained. "Evelyn, what is this?" "Dinner," I said. "And perhaps some clarity." They joined the table, the air now thick with tension. Clara's smirk faltered as she recognized Julia from the law firm's website. I clinked my glass lightly. "Since we're all here, I thought it might be nice to share something special." I reached for the remote beside my plate and clicked. The dining room lights dimmed, and the projector on the far wall came alive. First came the bank statements, large withdrawals, neatly highlighted. Then the property transfer papers with the falsified signature, my name forged in ink that now glowed under the light of exposure. Mark's fork clattered against his plate. "Evelyn, this isn't—" "This is," I said evenly. "Your account, your signature, Clara's name, your shared car purchase, and the little business investment. Such a generous gift from our joint funds." Clara's voice trembled. "You had no right to what?" I asked calmly. "To see my own money? My own house? You should really read up on marital law before playing house with another woman's husband." Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, his voice low but firm. "I think I've seen enough." Mark turned to him in panic. "Sir, this is personal. It's also fraud," Julia said sharply. "Forgery, misappropriation of funds. All documented, time-stamped, and verified." Mark's hand shook as he tried to speak. "You wouldn't—" I leaned forward, my tone quiet but cutting. "I already did." The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara pushed back from the table, face pale. "You're insane." I smiled faintly. "No, dear. Just patient." Mark's jaw clenched. "Evelyn, you've gone too far." "Too far?" I whispered. "You drained our accounts, sold our home, lied under oath, and flaunted her in public while wearing the face of a husband. No, Mark. You went too far." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the projector. I stood slowly, my voice steady but trembling with emotion. "You didn't just betray me, Mark. You committed fraud. You made me invisible in my own life. But tonight I take it all back." Julia gathered the papers, sliding them into her briefcase. "We'll proceed first thing Monday." Clara turned to Mark, her voice cold. "You said it was handled." Mark's face was a mask of fear and disbelief. "Evelyn, please." "We can talk about this. There's nothing left to say," I said. "You wanted freedom. You'll have it, just not the kind you imagined." Mr. Harrison pushed back his chair, his tone clipped. "Mark, we'll discuss your resignation Monday morning." The sound of his words echoed louder than any slap could. Mark's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Clara stared at him, her expression a mix of disgust and panic. I lifted my glass one last time. "To freedom," I said softly, "and to consequences." Then I took a slow sip, watching his world collapse in front of him, the same way he'd watched mine, and done nothing. The candles flickered, their flames bending as if bowing to the inevitable, and for the first time in months, the air in that house felt clean. The next morning, he was gone, but the silence didn't hurt anymore. The house felt different that morning, lighter, quieter. For the first time in years, it breathed. No more tension clinging to the walls, no more footsteps pacing behind closed doors. Just sunlight spilling through the kitchen window, warming the rim of my coffee mug, His wardrobe was empty, the drawers bare. Only a faint trace of his cologne lingered, that same scent that used to comfort me, now fading into something hollow. I stood there for a long moment, just listening. The silence wasn't cruel anymore. It was peace. Boxes had vanished overnight. His car was gone. And on the counter, a single envelope with my name written in his familiar, shaky handwriting. I didn't open it right away. I made my coffee, fed the cat, and let the minutes pass. When I finally tore the envelope open, I found a note. Short, desperate, and meaningless. "I'm sorry, Evelyn. I didn't know how to stop. Please call me." I folded it once and slipped it into the trash. Some apologies arrived too late to matter. By noon, the lawyer called. Julia's voice carried a trace of satisfaction. "It's over," she said. "The assets are protected and the court recognized your claim. He signed the resignation this morning." "Thank you, Julia," I said softly. "Really?" After the call, I walked into the living room, the same space that once held laughter, birthdays, and quiet Sunday mornings. Every corner held a memory. The couch where he first told me he loved me. The dining table where he later told me he wanted space. Memories, yes, but no longer prisons. The doorbell rang. The delivery man held 2 boxes, Mark's last things. I took them, signed the form, and carried them inside. Shirts, a few old books, cufflinks, a photo of us from the early years. I stared at it for a while. My younger self looked so hopeful beside him. Eyes bright, trust unbroken. Then I took a breath, placed the photo gently on top of the pile, and sealed the box. Later that afternoon, I drove to the donation center. The volunteer smiled kindly as she took the boxes. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "They don't belong to me anymore." That night the phone buzzed. A voicemail icon blinked. I almost ignored it, but something, maybe closure, made me press play. Mark's voice came through, cracked and weary. "Evelyn, I made a mistake. Clara's gone. She left as soon as she realized the accounts were frozen. I thought I was in love, but I was just lost. Can we talk?" For a moment, I just sat there staring at the dark window. I could almost see my reflection, calm, composed. No longer the woman who begged for answers. I whispered into the quiet. "No, Mark, I've already said everything I needed to." I deleted the message. The next week, I sold the house. The big, echoing house that once held a marriage and now only held ghosts. With the money, I bought a small cottage by the sea. A simple place, where mornings smelled like salt and wind, not old lies. The first morning there, I brewed coffee, stepped out onto the porch, and watched the tide roll in. The air was cool and free. I wasn't Mrs. Anything anymore, just Evelyn. That was enough. As I watched the waves, my phone buzzed again. An email this time. The sender's name made me blink. Harrison Group HR. I opened it, scanning the words slowly. "We're launching a women's financial empowerment initiative, and your name came up as a consultant. We'd be honored to have you share your experience." I smiled. The kind of smile that comes from deep inside. The one that doesn't need anyone's approval. 25 years of silence, and now my voice was finally being heard. I looked out at the sea, letting the breeze lift my hair. "Maybe this," I whispered, "is what freedom really sounds like." The tide answered with a soft roar, steady, endless, and mine. When he finally saw me again, I was no longer the woman he left, and that's what broke him. The ballroom shimmered with golden light and laughter. Crystal chandeliers spilled their glow over elegant gowns, polished shoes and champagne glasses catching every flicker of the evening. It was the annual corporate charity gala, the kind of event Mark and I used to attend together, where he'd hold my hand for show and let go the moment cameras stopped flashing. But this time, I wasn't anyone's plus one. I stood near the stage in a navy silk gown, simple yet commanding, the kind of dress that spoke of quiet power. My hair swept back, pearls gleaming at my ears, the same ones I'd worn on our wedding day. Only now, they belonged to a woman reborn. "Mrs. Grant," the event coordinator said, handing me a program. "You'll be our closing speaker. Everyone's excited to hear your story." I smiled. "Just Evelyn, please." She nodded, rushing off as the soft hum of conversation filled the air. I took a moment to breathe. I wasn't nervous, just aware. Aware of how far I'd come from that hollow morning when I found the empty wardrobe. Now, I was here as a consultant for the company's new financial empowerment initiative, helping women reclaim control over their lives, their money, their futures. And then, just as I turned toward the stage, I froze. Across the room, near the back, stood a familiar figure, Mark. He looked smaller somehow. Not just older, but reduced. The confident man who once thought he could rewrite my worth was now slouched in a borrowed suit, his tie slightly askew. His eyes searched the crowd until they landed on me. For a second, I saw a flicker of recognition, then disbelief. He started moving toward me, weaving through tables, ignoring the curious glances. My pulse didn't quicken. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I felt an odd calm settle over me. He stopped a few feet away, his voice a whisper drowned by the music. "Evelyn, you look—" I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Alive?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Before he could respond, the MC's voice filled the room. "Please welcome tonight's keynote speaker, Ms. Evelyn Grant, financial consultant and advocate for women's independence." Applause rose like a wave, and I stepped past him toward the stage, feeling his presence fade behind me. The spotlight hit, soft but sure. I took the podium, glancing briefly at the crowd, executives, donors, colleagues, and at the back, Mark, frozen in place. "Good evening," I began, my voice carried, smooth and confident. "Tonight, I want to talk about value. Not the kind written on checks or measured in dollars, but the kind we sometimes give away without realizing. Our time, our loyalty, our trust." The room quieted. Even the clinking of glasses stopped. "For years," I continued, "I believed that love meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant silence. But one day, I realized I'd built my life around someone else's shadow and forgotten my own light." Someone in the audience nodded. A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "That realization didn't break me," I said, smiling softly. "It rebuilt me." Applause broke out, gentle, then stronger. As I spoke, I saw him, standing there, eyes glassy, guilt and regret carved deep into his face. When I stepped down from the stage after my speech, he approached again, slower this time, his shoulders hunched. "Evelyn," his voice cracked. "Please, can we talk?" I tilted my head slightly. "About what?" He swallowed hard. "I lost everything. The job, the house. Clara's gone. I wasn't thinking clearly back then." I studied him, the man who once mocked my age, my softness, my loyalty. Now he stood there, stripped of arrogance, grasping for scraps of forgiveness. He reached out a trembling hand. "I just want a chance to make it right." I looked at his hand for a moment before smiling faintly and offering mine. Not for comfort, but closure. I shook it firmly, feeling his shock at my calm. "After 25 years, I said quietly, "you wanted someone younger." His lips parted, but I didn't let him speak. "But I found something better," I continued, voice steady. "Myself." The words hung in the air between us like a verdict. He blinked rapidly, his breath hitching. "Evelyn, please." I pulled my hand back gently. "I wish you peace, truly. But my story doesn't include you anymore." His face crumpled, eyes darting toward the crowd as if looking for a way out, for someone to save him. But there was no one left to do that. Not even me. The MC suddenly announced, "Let's give another round of applause for Ms. Grant." The audience erupted, clapping, cheering, some even standing. The sound swelled around us, drowning out his silence, his regret, his desperate attempt to speak. And in that moment, surrounded by light, applause, and freedom, I realized something profound. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. As I turned away, the noise carried me forward. I didn't look back. He had his moment once. This one was mine. And as the music swelled, I smiled, not out of pride or vengeance, but peace, finely, beautifully, utterly free. "Thank you for listening," I said softly into the mic as the applause faded. "If my story reminds you of your own, remember, it's never too late to start again." The crowd rose in ovation, and behind them, Mark stood motionless, swallowed by the sound of justice. Evelyn walks off stage, the lights catching her calm smile. Her voiceover closes softly but with power. "Sometimes the best revenge isn't rage, it's rebuilding. Let them be speechless while you rise." If you believe in self-worth after betrayal, subscribe for more stories of strength and justice.